In the Back of the Book segment tonight, the presidential election this year will be decided on how Americans see the war on terror and how we think it should be fought. Joining us now from Los Angeles is Sam Harris, the author of the new book, The End of Faith, Religion, Terror, and the Future of Reason. So what's the most provocative thesis in this book?
Oh, well, the issue for me, Bill, with respect to the war on terror is that we really have a deal breaker with Islam, and we're not talking about it. It's due to political correctness that could well get many of us killed. We are not acknowledging that at the core of mainstream Islam, there's this belief in martyrdom and jihad, which no one is criticizing. You're not hearing moderate Muslims come out against this. And it really is a deal breaker because it and nothing else explains the kind of violence we see Muslims practicing. It explains why a guy can drive a car into a crowd of children, blow them up, blow himself up, and feel that this is a win for his cause.
Okay, but we have always had on this earth crazy extremists in every religion. You know, even I'm a Roman Catholic, and you had the Inquisition. And we've always had it. In the Third Reich, you had regular German people signing off on slaughtering Jews.
Right.
I mean, we've always had this. How do you deal with it? And I don't necessarily agree that most people who are Muslim agree with blowing up children. I don't think they do. Am I wrong?
Well, that's not precisely the claim I'm making. The problem is we frankly don't know what percentage of the Muslim world is in support of the worldview of Osama bin Laden. There's been some polling data on this, on the specific question of suicide bombing, and quite frankly, the results are not encouraging. But the question you ask, which is a very good one, the issue really is unjustified belief. We're paying a terrible price for allowing people to be motivated by beliefs that because they're religious beliefs, it's taboo to criticize them.
I got it. I understand that you're not going to get politicians say, look, we're fighting Islam. They're never going to say that. But I don't think I'd say it either for two reasons. Number one, I don't know what good it does other than to tee off Muslims around the world who may not be violent and make them hate us more. And number two, you know, I look at countries like the United Arab Emirates, for example.
Right.
Moderate country, helps America. No problems there. And I can't say that Islam is bad across the board.
Yeah, well, I'm not, to say that we're at war with Islam is quite distinct from saying that we're at war with all Muslims. But we have to realize we have a choice between conversation or war. We either have to win a war of ideas with the Muslim world, or we're going to fight some very terrible wars in the future. And we are not prosecuting this war of ideas. We're certainly not going to.
But how do you do that? I mean, look, nobody could deny that this war is being generated by Muslim fanatics. I call them Islamist fascists. No one can
actually, people do deny that, though, Bill. You gotta understand that
nobody
people
who we
deny
take
that.
seriously, nobody who's clear thinking, nobody we take seriously. So that's the fact. But you're not going to persuade those people because by their very nature, they're nuts. They're crazy.
They're actually not crazy. That's one of the things I'm disputing.
Kill themselves or think they're going to get 72 virgins, you know, I got to say is insane.
It's actually no crazier, though, than believing that a cracker literally turns into the body of Jesus. It has terrible behavioral outcomes, but it is equally unsupported by evidence. And we have to deal with this.
I have to challenge you there. A cracker that people believe is the embodiment of Jesus hurts no one. It's a matter of faith, and it is a positive thing for those who believe it in the sense that they try to love their neighbor as themselves. These people going out killing babies, killing babies, all right, and thinking they're going to get rewarded for killing the baby with 72 virgins. There's a big difference in that kind of faith.
There's a very big difference in the outcome. What I'm disputing in my book is that there's no difference at the level of rationality. And we really have to get to the core issue here because our situation is much more sinister than I think you're letting on in this moment. It is possible to get a scientific education, to really be so well educated that you can build a nuclear bomb, and yet it's still possible to believe that you're going to get 72 virgins in the afterlife because we never explicitly criticize these kinds of beliefs in our culture.
Yeah, but I don't know if criticizing those beliefs in our culture are going to make those fanatics change one iota, probably make them hate us more. Mr. Harris, very provocative book, and we appreciate it. The book is The End of Faith. And next we will wrap things Unresolved Problem segment tonight. The battle over Terri Schiavo's life came down pretty much along secular religious lines. Roman Catholics and other right-to-life-based religions generally wanted Ms. Schiavo to live. And the ACLU and many other secular organizations saw no reason to prolong the woman's life. With us now, Sam Harris, the author of the book, The End of Faith. Now, you're taking the secular point of view here. You just heard Dr. Schuller, very emotional, very impassioned, saying, you know, all life is sacred, even if she's there. She's a comfort to her family. She has worth. No way we should be taking her life. You respond how?
Well, I think the thing this case really reveals is that we need to have a debate about medical ethics in this country. And we're not having that debate because the conversation has been hijacked by this movement of evangelical populism, for lack of a better word.
Would Schuller be that?
Yeah, I mean, this marriage between morality and religion, which I argue in my book is an utter myth. I mean, our religions just are not the best repository of our ethical intuitions here.
Well, you know, it just depends on the individual practicing the religion, I think. But look, let's keep it with Schuller, because everybody just heard him. Schuller looked to be sincere to me.
Oh,
he looked to have a
that.
strong belief in the dignity of the person. He believes in the soul. What could possibly be wrong with that?
Well, it's interesting that the poll results you just posted suggest that a significant, at least a slight percentage of Americans, 55% to 60%, actually see something wrong with it. They see that there is a difference between religious dogma, this erring on the side of life, or respecting life, or instilling a culture of life, and compassion, and a real intelligent discussion about human suffering and how best to relieve it. Most Americans realize intuitively that there is something worse than death. It is possible to find yourself in a situation, now whether Terri Schiavo was in that situation is open to debate, but there is no doubt that there are situations that many of us face at the end of our lives where death is a mercy, and the real travesty here is that there is no compassionate choice for euthanasia or assisted suicide.
So you believe that it's up to the individual to, but Schuller wouldn't disagree with that. I asked him point blank. You know, I mean, if I don't want a feeding tube, I don't want one.
Yeah, but he disagrees with assisted suicide and euthanasia.
If the choice is made by the state rather than the individual.
Oh, no, he would disagree. I heard him. He would want the feeding tube or any heroic means removed.
Right.
But the choice is you have to die from natural causes. Now, in Terri Schiavo's case...
Oh, I see what you mean. He wouldn't want a hot shot.
Right,
okay.
Exactly.
And you say the hot shot's fine.
Oh, there is no doubt that there are situations where starving to death is a bad option.
Okay,
now,
but let's stay on the hot shot. I'm not big on starvation, although I don't believe Ms. Schiavo felt anything. All the doctors say the same thing.
Right.
Say I'm depressed, and say I'm a drug addict or an alcoholic, and I don't want to live anymore, and I walk in, and you think that the doctor has a right to take my life because I don't want to live anymore?
Well, we have to be...
Wait, answer that question, sir, if you would.
Well, if we have to analyze the situation very carefully.
I just gave you the situation.
Well,
I'm depressed, I'm an addict,
depression.
I don't want to live anymore, I walk in, I ask for a hot shot, should the doctor give it to me?
Well, not if your depression isn't medicated. I mean, we have remedies for depression, but people who are depressed, we know, are not the best judges.
But what if they say, look, I've been on Prozac and heroin for 18 years, I've had enough, I don't want to live. Would you give the state the authority to grant the person's wishes to end his or her own life if they didn't have a terminal disease? Would you?
I think the decision should rest with the person ultimately.
Okay, so
and we should give that person
and that's the secular approach that we have in Holland and a lot of other places.
Right, absolutely.
That if you don't want to live, you can walk into a clinic or a doctor and say, I don't want to live, doc. Let's have the shot. See, now you're getting into real. That'll never happen in America. I will predict it will never happen.
Well,
Life, if you have an illness that's terminal, I could understand. If you're depressed, because you could always change your mind. I don't think the state has the authority to do that. Go ahead.
Well, there are people. It's just if you do not think that there's a situation where you are, with the full presence of your mind, are competent to judge that you want to die and don't want to live another moment, you're just not thinking clearly enough.
Well, then suicide should not be illegal.
It should not be. Absolutely not.
So anybody can do anything they want with their body.
Ultimately, but we recognize that we're all united. I mean, we all are linked. We have responsibilities. You know, if parents commit suicide willy-nilly and they leave their kids on...
Who are you recognizing? And people who commit suicide really aren't thinking clearly here. You see what I'm talking about?
No,
they don't know the unintended consequences of them jumping off the roof. It's going to hurt 15 other people. They don't care.
There's no doubt that there are suicides that are irresponsible and purely hostile acts. But then there are people who are suffering ALS, say, and have decades to contemplate the end of their life and
right. Do you believe that your view represents the secular thinking in this country, the ACLU thinking?
Well, the distinction between compassion and suffering and religious dogmatism, the idea that you can have souls in a petri dish and therefore you should block stem cell research, that distinction is secular. What I would argue, and I argue in my book, is that only secularists are in a position to really just talk about suffering, talk about the end of suffering, and talk about intelligence. You shut the religious
people out of the debate. I don't know if that's wise. All right.
We got to run dogma out of the debate.
But thanks for being honest. We appreciate it. Very provocative.
Thank you very much.
Plenty more ahead as the factor moves along this evening. We will